The leaves do not rustle in Belleau Wood, they scream. The sound is a dry, hacking rasp, like the breath of a dying man caught in the throat of a rusted engine. Here, the canopy is so thick that the sun is a distant memory, a pale ghost that cannot pierce the veil of emerald gas and rotting timber. We were the 4th Marine Brigade, the men they called devil dogs, because we didn't know how to stop biting once we caught a scent. We came to France to break the back of an empire of men, but the forest didn't care about Kaiser Wilhelm. The forest had been claimed by a hunter that didn't use artillery or diplomacy. It used the shadows. It used the silence. And it used us as bait. My name is Sergeant Mac Riley. My boots are heavy with the slurry of French soil and the copper-scented filth of the trenches, and my hands are stained with a fluid that isn't red. It's a thick, glowing sapphire grease that hisses when it touches the oxygen. This is the blood of the stars, and tonight I am going to drown the woods in it. The ambush began not with a bang but with a ripple. We were moving in a staggered line, our Springfield M1903 rifles held at the ready, bayonets fixed and gleaming with a dull, wet silver. Corporal Boots, Harrison was 3 paces ahead of me, his eyes darting between the splintered trunks of ancient oaks. He was a good kid from Ohio, a hunter who could hit a squirrel's eye at 100 yards. He stopped suddenly, his hand raised in a silent signal. "Sarge," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the distant subsonic thrumming that had plagued our ears since we entered the sector. "The air, it's moving wrong." I looked. 10 feet in front of Boots, the mist wasn't swirling, it was bending. It was as if a pane of warped glass was walking through the trees. A shimmer stalker. These things didn't have tripods or motherships in the woods. They were the infantry of the void, specialists in the art of the kill. They wore cloaks of light-bending mesh that made them nearly invisible against the foliage. "Doc, Rossi, spread out." I roared, the silence of the wood shattering like a window. Boots didn't even have time to bring his rifle to his shoulder. A blade of pure, vibrating orange light, a thermal lancet, erupted from the shimmer. It hissed through the air, a clean horizontal stroke that bypassed his armor and his bone as if they were smoke. Boots had hit the moss before his body did. Open fire. Blazed the fog. I didn't reach for my Springfield. I reached for the trench sweeper, the Winchester M1897. I slammed the pump forward, the heavy chunk of the action, the most beautiful sound in the world. I pulled the trigger. The blast was a thunderous roar, a wall of buckshot that tore through the mist. The lead pellets didn't just hit the air, they found meat. The shimmer shattered like a broken mirror, revealing a tall, gaunt creature with 4 obsidian eyes and skin the color of a bruised plum. It shrieked, a high-frequency sound that made my ears bleed instantly, and collapsed, blue ichor spraying the ferns. "They're in the trees. Look up." "Private Stitch," O'Malley screamed. He was right. Above us the branches were crawling. The stalkers were dropping from the canopy, their cloaks flickering as they moved through the layers of mustard gas. One landed directly on Private Rossi, its weight crushing him into the mud. Rossi didn't reach for his gun. He reached for his combat knife. He was a street fighter from Chicago, and he died like one, stabbing blindly into the creature's midsection even as the thermal blades turned his chest into a furnace. Fixed bayonets. Don't let him breathe. The woods turned into a chaotic, primeval slaughterhouse. This wasn't the war of the maps. This was the war of the gut. We were devil dogs, and when the bullets ran dry we used the steel. I saw Lieutenant Roy Colt parry a plasma spear with the barrel of his rifle, the wood scorching and smoking. He didn't flinch. He stepped inside the alien's guard and drove 10 inches of American steel through its primary throat sac. The creature gurgled, a fountain of glowing blue fluid drenching the lieutenant's face, but he just wiped his eyes and moved to the next one. The mustard gas was our only ally. The yellow-green vapor was heavy, and as the invisible hunters moved through it, they left trails, vacuums in the fog that gave away their positions. We learned to shoot the ripples. We learned to hunt the voids. O'Malley. Grenade. Northeast bivouac. Stitch pulled the pin on a Mills bomb and hurled it into a cluster of dense briars where the shimmer was most intense. The explosion was a bloom of orange fire and black earth. 3 stalkers were thrown into the air, their cloaks failing, their spindly limbs broken. They weren't gods. They were just hunters, and we were the most dangerous prey they had ever tracked. I felt a sudden, searing pain in my shoulder. I spun around, the trench sweeper firing before I even saw the target. The buckshot caught a stalker mid-leap, its orange blade inches from my throat. The creature was shredded, its obsidian eyes bursting, but the heat of its weapon had already melted through my wool tunic and into my skin. I didn't feel the burn, I felt the rage. It was a cold, white-hot clarity that narrowed the world down to the sight of my next target. "Sarge, there's a big one. By the ravine." Stitch yelled, pointing toward the edge of the grove. It was the lead hunter. It stood 8 feet tall, its cloak not just shimmering, but pulsing with a dark, rhythmic violet light. It held a staff that hummed with enough electrical energy to ionize the very air. Around it, the remaining stalkers gathered, their blades hissing in the rain. "Colt, Murphy, on me!" We charged. There was no tactical brilliance here, no flank maneuvers. There was only the bayonet and the grit. We hit the alien line with the force of a landslide. I slammed the butt of my shotgun into the face of a smaller stalker, hearing the satisfying crunch of alien bone. Murphy was to my left, his Springfield barking every 2 seconds, each shot a precision strike that found the gaps in the alien's chitinous armor. The lead hunter raised its staff. A bolt of violet lightning arched through the trees, striking Murphy in the chest. His uniform ignited instantly, his body thrown back against an oak tree. He didn't fall. He stayed upright, pinned by the energy, his hands still clutching his rifle. "Mac, do it!" Colt screamed, diving into a roll as the hunter swung its staff at him. I was out of shells. I dropped the shotgun and pulled my trench knife, a heavy piece of brass-knuckled iron. I didn't care about the lightning. I didn't care about the blades. I lunged at the lead hunter, my boots sliding in the mud and alien gore. The creature was fast, its violet eyes tracking my every movement, but it didn't understand the marine spirit. It didn't understand that a devil dog doesn't care if he dies, as long as he takes the throat of the beast with him. The hunter swung the staff. I didn't dodge. I let the wood catch me in the ribs, feeling the bones snap like dry twigs. The pain was a distant bell. I used the momentum of the strike to pull myself closer, my left hand grabbing the creature's spindly neck. "Say hello to the core." I drove the trench knife into the hunter's central iris. I felt the brass knuckles shatter the lens, the blade burying itself deep into the alien's brain matter. A surge of cold, electrical energy shot through my arm, smelling like burnt ozone and copper, but I didn't let go. I twisted the knife, carving a path of destruction through its skull. The lead hunter let out a sound that wasn't a shriek, it was a sob. A digital, dying moan that echoed through the entire woods. The violet light in its staff flickered and died. The stalkers in the trees suddenly froze, their neural links severed. They fell from the branches like dead leaves, their cloaks sputtering and failing. The lead hunter collapsed, taking me with it into the mud. I lay there, my chest heaving, the blood of the stars mixing with the mud of the earth on my face. The silence returned to Belleau Wood, but this time, it was an honest silence. The humming was gone. The shadows were just shadows. I looked around. Colt was standing, his uniform in tatters but his eyes sharp. Stitch was helping Doc Miller bandage a jagged wound in his leg. Murphy was still leaning against that tree, his eyes closed, his Springfield still held tight. We had lost 20 men in 20 minutes. A whole platoon erased by the ghosts of the stars. "Sarge," Stitch whispered, walking over to me. Are they all gone?" I looked up at the canopy. For the first time, a single ray of pale morning sunlight managed to break through the green gas and the thick leaves. It hit the mud, illuminating the broken bodies of the hunters and the hunted. "In this wood?" "Yeah," I rasped, coughing up a mouthful of blood. "But the sky is still full of stars, Stitch. And we're still the only dogs they've got." I pulled myself up, leaning on the cold, dead chassis of the lead hunter. I picked up my shotgun, the metal cold and reassuring in my hand. We didn't wait for the brass to tell us what to do. We didn't wait for the reinforcements. We began the long, slow walk back toward the primary trenches, our footsteps heavy, our hearts hardened into something that the world of 1918 wasn't ready to understand. The forest behind us was no longer a place of mystery. It was a tomb. A monument to the night the devil dogs showed the stars that the earth has teeth. We walked into the morning light, the mist clinging to our coats like the fingers of the dead, and we didn't look back. The wood is no longer French, nor is it ours. It is a tomb of stone and stars. The sun rises, pale and weak, over a battlefield that history will try to forget. The trees stand tall, their roots drinking the blue and red of the fallen, and the wind carries the last of the green gas into the hollows of the earth. We are the survivors, the ones who saw the ripple and fired back. The forest goes silent, and the war, the real war, moves on to the next patch of darkness. Belleau Wood holds its breath. The hunters are gone. The dogs are moving. The world is safe for one more hour.